Well, hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Adam, thanks for hanging out with me again today, and we're going to jump right into it. So this is the Ask Me Anything Answers video. So all the questions that came in from the video about a week and a half ago, I'm answering today. So if you guys still have questions, feel free to ask them down below. I'll be happy to answer them, but we've got the collection of many pages, so I'm just going to jump right into it. So Mark Connor 269, hey Adam, does your wife ever complain about your RC collection or hobby? All the time spent building and money, his does. And does she have any RC cars herself that you guys run together? No complaints. Other than occasionally spending a little bit too much money. But other than that, no complaints. She supports me, and you guys, if you guys haven't seen the birthday haul video, that was kind of evident that she's fully behind me with this craziness of collecting all this stuff. So as far as her running RCs, we did get her a Red Cat Gen 8. I bought a pair of them, one for me, one for her. She got it all put together, got the decals on it, got the light kit in it, put her own custom decals on there that I cut out for her, and that's about as far as that went. She didn't want to go out in the cold and run it because it was a Christmas present, and it just never happened. Occasionally when we're out running something, like if she comes out with me for a run video, she will nab the controller and run it around for a few moments, but other than that, she really doesn't have any interest in driving them or building them, or she definitely has no interest in working on them. So Roland Labrie Jr., sorry if I butcher you guys' names in here, I'm just winging it. I was wondering if you ever done any Frankenstein builds. I'm working on one now, and I think I'm up to 4 manufacturers on this one car / truck. I have done some homemade builds, but never any like mashups of like, half Traxxas, half Tamiya, or half Tamiya, half Kyosho, anything like that. I'm pretty sure at some point I probably bodged something together, but I don't currently have anything now. I have done 2 custom builds. I did the HPI Wheelie King rock crawler and the Clodbuster rock crawler many moons ago, where it's custom homemade twin plate chassis, custom links, all that stuff that I made, but no Frankenstein builds. So Steve Wallman, hey Adam, I built a buggy champ a while back. Since it's mostly going to be a shelf queen, I purposely installed the dampers upside down. This was basically to keep the oil from leaking out while it sat on the shelf. Do you think it'll have any effect when the car runs? I realize that those specific dampers are not terribly effective anyway. I didn't want to damage them and would like to keep whatever minimal effect they do, have. I have yet to actually run the car, but I do like to run my cars at least once. A very minimal impact. So for visual cues, normally when you have your shocks in the traditional sense, your piston is sitting down at the bottom of the shock. So when it travels up, it's got to travel through all the oil that's in the shock to hit the top. Now, once you invert it, your piston is now at the top where the air is. So when you first start running it, you may notice that, it wants to dive real quick. But the good thing with most shocks is that air is going to emulsify with the oil. You're going to have this kind of super air bubbly oil, and it will reduce your viscosity of everything and make the shock work a little bit faster, but you'll still get that compression and dampening from it. So unless the shocks are really low on oil, you probably won't notice any different. And as far as damaging it, the minute you start moving that thing up and down, the shock oil is going to go through, lubricate the seals. The seals should already have some oil in them, lubricated from the last run or when you built it. So minimum risk and minimum impact. Now, obviously, if it was a race buggy, running inverted shocks is generally a no-no unless you're rebuilding them every race and you know exactly that everything is perfect. Justin Duran, what was your very first functional radio-controlled car? So if it was a actual, forward, reverse, left, right, wireless RC car, the first one I really remember and I have fond memories of is the Tyco Turbo Hopper. Well, the heads up Turbo Hopper, because his head actually turned. I had dozens and dozens of smaller, drive it forward, turn it reverse type things, wired ones, all that type of stuff. But the first good one I had was the Tyco Heads Up Turbo Hopper. The first hobby grade I had was the Tamiya Super Blackfoot. MOS RCZ, hey buddy, what 22 pinion do you recommend for a TT02D build? I may have gone over the top with the motor Hobby Wing Max 10 G2 80 amp. So I wouldn't go with the aluminum pinion, that's for sure. You know, you're going to be turning a lot of RPMs with that. It's not going to be great. That aluminum one, they're not known for their longevity. So any kind of hardened pinion, the Robinson Racing hardened steel pinions are kind of like the gold standard here in the U.S. that they've always been making pinions, and they're always going to be cut good. So I would say something like that. Any kind of hardened pinion gear. You know, you can get the aluminum, like the aftermarket aluminum ones, and it is a tougher grade of aluminum than whatever cheese Tamiya makes theirs out of. Theirs is a really soft aluminum. But yeah, either hardened steel, or, you know, a very quality aluminum one should suit fine. Let's see. So Christopher Walker, Addam, are you a sports fan? If so, who do you follow, and what's your Super Bowl prediction? So I'm not a huge sports fan. I used to watch all kinds of sports. I think it's just between time and interest. It's just waned over the years, and I really don't follow too closely. Now, I do love the Capitals, and I actually actually, when you're watching this, the next day I'll be going to a Caps game. My daughter got us tickets for Christmas, so I'll be watching the Capitals play on the 11th. So you guys are watching this on the 10th. I'll be watching Capitals on the 11th. Football, follow the Ravens, not terribly close. Used to be a diehard Redskins fan growing up as a kid. You know, that was our local team, and they were actually good. But you know, for years and years and years and years and decades, they have sucked. So finally gave up on them. They didn't seem like they wanted to fix anything, and now they're starting to fix some of the problems. Maybe they'll come back, but you know, at this point, meh. Let's see, Super Bowl prediction. Kansas City, probably. But I really don't care. I don't care much for either team. But my mom roots for Kansas City, so hey, you know, go KC. So Racing 393, 2.5 part question. What got you into RC and when? And regarding education, college, etc., what's your skill set? And did you achieve your goal from what you thought as a kid to now? Great channel, talking RC and stuff. It is a fantastic hobby. So thanks, Dean. So what got me into RC? I've always been kind of a little tinkerer. I've taken a lot of stuff apart over the years, and I think this was a safe way to do it. It was something that if it broke, I could tear it apart, I could put it back together. I knew exactly how it went together. I could build it up from scratch, and you know, it satisfied that, you know, how the things work mentality. Plus, you know, it's just a fascination to, you know, stand there in one spot and watch this little car ride around, and you're controlling it the whole time. So education, yeah, that was a weird path. So I am a high school dropout. Got my GED because I thought I knew everything, and school was stupid. School for me was very, very boring. I excelled a lot at a young age, and was in, you know, higher programs and stuff like that up into grade school. And then that teacher left, and the teacher that came in started teaching us stuff that we had already been taught. And I didn't like that because, you know, why are you teaching us stuff? And I confronted her about it, and it didn't go anywhere. So I quit that class, and then I went back to normal classes, which was even worse because, you know, I was already a year or two ahead of everybody else. So goofing off took higher priority than learning anything. And so yeah, I just kind of gave up on school, figured, you know, I'll get a job, do what I need to do. And I worked a lot of manual labor jobs and tough stuff that, you know, put a heavy toll on my body over the years. And at one point I decided I need to go back to college. So I did go back to college. I got a bachelor's degree in IT security, and I currently work in IT security as my job. And, you know, things change over time. You think you know everything, and then you find out you don't know a damn thing. Let's see. And did I achieve my goals from what I thought I was going to be doing as a kid? I had no idea what I was going to be doing as a kid. I don't know what I'm going to be doing in the next 6 months. I am a perpetual person that just wings it and goes with the flow, and what happens, happens. I try not to plan too far ahead because things change, and, you know, that frustrates me when things don't go right. So I just kind of have learned to just go with the flow and, you know, make things happen, but don't try to force it and plan it out years and years in advance. So just kind of a forever winging it. Scott Hillier, hey Addam, cracking channel. What's your day job? Okay, we talked about that just a second ago. Yeah, IT security. I'm not going to go into great details about it. But yeah, it pays the bills. I don't necessarily love it, but it is fairly interesting. How do you find time to do everything? Work, and then try to squeeze in time for family. You know, and I don't want to complain. I love doing this. You know, the job, the work pays for all this. The work for this is fun and I enjoy it. And then I have also personal responsibilities to the house, the yard, the family, all that stuff, and then try to find time for family time and stuff. But I have learned to try to balance it. But basically with work and YouTube, I have two more or less full-time jobs almost, and, you know, trying to work life into it. So it does get hectic at times. And I've learned that occasionally you just have to take a break and, you know, skip a video or, you know, try to stockpile and catch a breather every now and then. All right, page 1 done. Let's see, Paul begin. So, Adam, how long does it take you to film, edit, and upload one of your entertaining videos? So it really depends. Run videos take a good bit of time editing, especially when I've got different camera angles and stuff like that, because I'm trying to, you know, cut the good chunks out and sprinkle them all in and blend them together and, you know, make it make sense and be entertaining to watch. Plus, setting up all the cameras and all that stuff adds to the recording time. But generally, a run video, you know, the car is built, so it's just charge up a battery, go out and run it. So most of the time is the setup and the editing. Now, otherwise, on the other side of it, the builds, they take much longer to video because, you know, I've got to record an intro, I've got to, you know, record the parts and everything, remember to take pictures, which is terribly hard for me. And then come back and explain any problems that I had, or, you know, jump in with any issues I had, stuff like that. So getting all that right the first time takes time and unfortunately planning, which I'm not good at. But, you know, editing of those does go a little bit quicker. Now, for the short stuff, the midweek updates, you know, quick talking head videos, those aren't too bad because they're fairly short, and all I've got to do is edit out the parts where I just can't talk. The stuttering and the stumbling and the sputtering out. See, I can't do it. That's the stuff I've got to edit out all the time. But yeah, that would go a whole lot quicker if I could talk. Now, these type of videos, it's a long time sitting here talking. It's a long time listening back to it, editing, clipping out the little dead zones and breaks and stuff that I take. But, you know, all in all, I would say on average, every video, there's at least probably 2 hours worth of effort at minimum. Run videos, you know, you're looking at 3 or 4 hours sitting there. And again, a lot of it's, you know, doing the editing and stuff. So it really depends. Some are very short, some are very long. I would say average, you know, 1 to 2 hours to record something and then edit it. So Pete Wiley, hey Adam, my question is, if you ever had to run over one of your RC cars with your full-size car in a style of the petulant Kevin Talbot, which one would it be? Cheers, mate, Pete. I try not to do anything Kevin Talbot does. I am not a fan of Kevin. Never have been. It's just not my style. If I had to run over one, just to do it, it would be the Rift. I have no sentimental attachment to that truck. Currently, it's sitting over there without a motor and a speed control in it. Thinking about turning it into a crawler, but really don't care if it just sits over there. Outback RC Australia. Hey Adam, a few questions, both RC and non. It's okay if you don't answer them. Don't worry about that. As long as you don't give me 35 questions, guys, I will happily answer all your questions. Like us, you don't live in a metropolitan area, or do you have anything dangerous like snakes, bears, spiders, etc.? Now, nothing like you guys have in Australia. You know, outside of Australia, you guys are known for everything in Australia is trying to kill you. But here, probably the biggest thing is copperhead snakes. They're a poisonous snake around here, and they blend in perfectly with the leaves and the tree bark a lot of times. So you do have to be careful stomping around in the leaves, especially in the spring and the fall. There's a rare black bear, but those things are more scared of us than we are of them usually. There used to be bobcats around. I haven't heard or seen one in decades. You know, they kind of have gone towards the much more rural areas than us. Now we do have black widows and we do have the brown recluse spiders. Nobody I've known has been bit by a black widow, but my mom has actually been bit by a brown recluse twice. So those do happen. What type of battery do you prefer? LiPo, nickel metal hydride, whatever, and do you have a brand preference, as some people do? So most of my stuff, all it to me are generally the nickel metal hydride. They fit, they run long enough, they perform well enough now. I really don't need 2S, 3S lipo power in a Tamiya. Most of my Tamiyas are building them, putting them in the collection, and running them when I want to, so I'm not trying to run them super hard. Now, lipos for the bashers, you know, the Mad Van, the Promoto, the Armas, all that stuff, you know, those get lipo and they get beat on. Brand wise, I've been very happy with the Z brand batteries. I bought, probably got 7 or 8 of the nickel metal hydride packs, and I probably got 8 or 10 of the lipo packs at this point. I had more of the nickels, but they started wearing out, but they're 3 or 4 years old and been run a lot. If you and your family eat out, what type of restaurants do you prefer there in the U.S.? Years ago in Oz, Chinese food was the main thing, but over time, we now have more varieties. So we really don't eat out a lot. But every Friday night, we do make sure to go get takeout from somewhere. So oftentimes, it's Chinese, Mexican. We do stuff like Popeye's fried chicken, which is like a spicy fried chicken. Hot wings from like Buffalo Wild Wings or somewhere like that. And my favorite is to go get subs from, you know, a deli somewhere and just enjoy a tasty sub. When painting Tamiya drivers, how do you keep your hands steady when painting the black around the base and the face opening? The biggest thing to do is when you're painting a driver figure, so pretend this is the driver figure head. Now, you're generally going to have, what I do with my driver figures is I stab a bamboo barbecue skewer right in the bottom of his head, so he's on a pike. And I can hold that barbecue skewer in my hand, and then I have my paintbrush, and this is a tip that goes back that I learned years ago from painting the little tiny gaming figures. You put your palms together, and then you brace your elbows either on the table, or you brace them against the table, or even to your sides. So you want to like bring it all in nice and tight. So the only thing that's moving is this hand. And you can rotate, because you're on that barbecue skewer, you can rotate the helmet and slowly paint around there. And you just want to get a little bit of paint on your brush and paint that line. And, you know, do half an inch or so. Get a little tiny more paint on there. You don't want a big blob of paint sticking on the end of your brush. You just want the bristles wet. And then paint a little bit, move it, paint a little bit. And you're just constantly bracing one hand to the other, your arms into your side or your elbows on the table, and it just keeps, you know, I have shakes. You know, I've done a lot of physical stuff. I've worked with a lot of chemicals, so my hands do tremble. So I do have to brace myself. So that's my biggest tip on painting the driver figures at all, is just, you know, make sure you have, you know, yourself braced, so the only thing that's moving is the paintbrush. Let's see. When painting a polycarbonate body shell, do you always use a Tamiya PS, or you had any luck using other generic acrylic spray paint or anything from a hobby auto shop? Generally, I use the PS paints, or I'll use the Traxxas Pro Graphics paints. I also will use the Proline airbrush paints. Not a big of a fan of those. I know if you do it all the time and you get good at it, you can get great results and paint something really, really fast. I am none of that. I prefer the rattle cans over the airbrush generally. So those are my two go-tos. Generally, I get the PS paints just because they're color-coded to the Tamiya stuff. They look like the box art, so it's easiest to go. I generally go box art, unless I weather the hell out of something, but that was to cover up mistakes. And lastly, if you're building a shelf queen, do you glue the tires? And if so, what glue do you use? Generally, I rarely glue tires, unless it's something that needs to be glued. The Kyosho tires, the really soft ones, anything that's going, if I can tell it's going to peel off the rim or spin in the rim, you know, I will glue those. So the race buggies, you know, the Dirt Master, the Kyosho buggies and stuff like that, generally I will have to glue those. So this is the Bob Smith Industries super glue. This one is the Instaflex. I like the Instaflex because it seems to bond to the rubber a little bit better. And I don't go, well, unless it's like a super, super soft tire. Like the Kyosho Scorpion tires, those things are just like floppy. I will glue that all the way around. So say if I was going to glue the wheels down to the Wild Willie 2 here, I actually wouldn't glue all the way around the face. I probably wouldn't glue around the face at all. I would just peel the inside of the rim back at the top and the bottom, put a dab of glue at the top, rotate it 180 degrees, put a drop of glue there, and just let it sit. Because that little drop of glue is going to spread out a good bit across the wheel, and bond a big chunk of the tire to it. You know, if you're running 3S on something and the tires are going to fly out the wheels, sure, glue the hell out of them. But on these, you know, a dot or two of glue just to keep them from spinning in the wheel or, you know, popping off the wheel is really all I ever do. And you can also get them back off a whole lot easier if you ever need to. So this one did make me laugh, and thank you. Moon Ticket asks, so would you swap the RC Mutts Cuts van for an RC bike and totally redeem yourself? So, no. But I expected the Rocky Mountains to be a whole lot rockier than this. Yeah, that John Denver guy is full of crap. If you don't know, it's from the Dumb and Dumber movie. It's just a quote from when they were driving around. Supposed to be in the Rocky Mountains, but they were in the middle of the plains. So I am the Freight Train. What is your favorite RC monster truck, and what would you suggest for someone who owns a lunchbox and attracts as Bigfoot? I love building the lunchbox, still figuring out paint. So the Clodbuster is probably the all-time favorite. You know, that is the OG classic RC monster truck for my generation. You know, it's big tires, big lumbering thing around. It was just the biggest RC out there for the longest time, and you know, just has great memories for me. So that's my all-time favorite. What I would recommend, so if you're building something, I would say probably something like the Monster Beetle, or if you really are having fun with the lunchbox, then maybe the Midnight Pumpkin. But I would say go ahead and build something different. And, you know, you would have one for wheelies and bopping around and fun, and then a Monster Beetle or the Blackfoot would be something else. But they're not monster trucks, but they are monster trucks. But, you know, anything with big bouncy tires is always going to be fun. Really. Now, if you just want something for sheer fun and running around and try not to break the bank and, you know, that monster truck style, the Armor Gorgon is great. I love that thing. I did blow out the servo saver on it, but I think that was a defect. I have beat the snot out of it since and not had any issues out of it. So that Gorgon is a ton of fun. And I think here in the US it's like $169 for a ready to run kit. You know, it's great. Page 2. Alright, James from Yoda Dark Side, Greenhawks RC. So, let's see. What do you prefer, new builds or restorations? I personally find more pleasure out of bringing an old car back to its full glory over building a new kit. I like both. I love building something that I haven't built before. So that, like the birthday thing, you know, I've got the MB01, I haven't built that yet. The TC01, I haven't built that yet. The globe liner, I have built the rig, but not that one. And so the chassis is a little bit different. The cab is a whole lot different. So still new enough. And then, you know, the Comical Grasshopper, it's basically the same chassis as this, but a whole different body. So same but different. But I do like building the new ones a lot, especially something that I haven't built before. Now, I do really like building or refurbishing the old ones. There is a whole lot of satisfaction and I guess pride, almost, of being able to take something that's beaten, battered, has problems, solving all that, putting a fresh new body on there, cleaning it all up, making it look as new as I can. I do enjoy that. Now, full-on restorations, I have not done any, and I don't know if I want to, because hunting for the parts has its own fun, but God, parts are so expensive. Especially the vintage parts now are just so ridiculously expensive that it just makes me mad when I'm out shopping for something that, you know, a wheel hub or something, you know, it's $85 because they're just so hard to find. And it's like, why? You know, to me, it could still make those, but, you know. So what platform do you think Phil, RC Poor Boys, will choose for this year's speedrun challenge? It's a bit random, I know, but interesting nonetheless. I think he's going to go with something a little less mainstream than the TTO2 this year. I don't know if he was prepared for the amount of interest and the amount of people that have a TTO2 at their disposal to go out there and try to get up to 100 miles an hour. So I'm hoping it is something, you know, on that opposite end. You know, I love the first year trying to get the lunchbox to go fast because it is not designed or ever was meant or thought to ever go fast. So something like that's more of a challenge of, you know, can I make this goofy bumbly thing go fast versus can I just make this streetcar go as fast as it possibly can. You know, that's my personal preference on it. I don't know what Phil's going to do, but I'm thinking he may be leaning more towards getting back to something that's, you know, more bumbly and tumbly than sleek and fast. Why is Tamiya Grasshopper driven by Taylor at the top of our figure 8 time trials leaderboard, beating out the far superior and faster vehicles? Sometimes the adage is slow is fast, and sometimes that actually is the truth. Sometimes just having something with too much power, too much go, too much punch, all it does is get you in trouble. You know, you've seen me drive on my track. I am an awful driver. So the slower and more tame the car is, generally I can put in more consistent and faster laps than something that has a powerful brushless motor and goes super insane, because you come in too fast, you brake too late, you've messed up, and then that mess up leads to you being frantic and trying to catch up, which leads to more mess ups and more mess ups and more mess ups. So if you're like me and are not a pro driver and can just swallow those hiccups and go, you know, it's slower often is faster. Peter Ronzoni, what do you think the most efficient connector to use for higher powered applications like 3S to 6S vehicles? Thanks. Generally 3S, you know, EC3 is fine. You know, you've got to really do something goofy to burn up a connector these days. EC5 are kind of the top tier common connectors. So EC3 is rated to 60 amps continuous. Now, most cars aren't going to be putting out a continuous 60 amps. You may have bursts above 60 amps for sure, but continuous 60 amps is a lot of power. Now, EC5 is rated up to 120 amps. So good luck. You're going to have to really be pushing something to the limits to melt something like that. Now, the XT150s, those are actually really big, bulky connectors. They're only rated up to 120 amps, but the surface area on those is twice of what the EC5s are. So you have a much bigger banana plug, you have a much bigger hole in socket, and everything's gold plated, so you should have more connectivity, less resistance in a bigger plug like that. It just depends if you have the means and, you know, ability to put that in your cars and keep them in all your cars. They're not the cheapest plugs. But yeah, EC5s, I would say, you know, you can stick that in anything commercially available and not have a single worry about it. Now, you know, super modified, mega low turn motors and super high output ESCs, you know, you're just going to have to roll the dice, but I don't see you melting down one. So SRG Hitman, hey Adam, how do you afford all the cars that you have at the moment? What cars have you upgraded with metal parts and stuff? So affording them, the biggest thing is, you know, we're older now. Kids are moved out of the house. You know, I don't have to pay for kids anymore. A lot of our stuff is paid off. You know, all of our cars are paid off. So I don't have excess car payments. I have a mortgage like everybody else, but, you know, we have our bills to pay, but not an excessive amount. And, you know, we've gotten to the point that we're old enough where we are fairly comfortable. You know, I'm not rich by any means. I have poor spending habits, that's for sure. But I've always been into something. You know, if it wasn't RC, I had another hobby. You know, it was metal detecting, or it was, you know, painting stuff or building stuff. You know, I've always been doing something. So I've always either been buying tools, materials, something. So this is not much different than it has been my entire life. I've always been doing something with my hands. So that requires tools and materials and supplies and all that stuff. This is just a different facet of that, and one that is really stuck, and now it's become a thing with the whole YouTube thing. So, you know, I'm supplying me with fun, I'm supplying you guys with entertainment, and I am starting to get some money back from YouTube. So any of that money is going into buying more kits, parts, stuff like that. So it is starting to help self-fund itself to a certain degree. But still, I'm spending an awful lot of money. So SRG Hitman also asked, the FlySky FS GT3C 3-channel controller and receiver, is it any good? So pretty much any of the ones that you're going to be able to buy a separate, you know, controller and receiver that are 2.4 gig are going to be decent. There's not really that many garbage ones out there. The technology is become so standardized, and it's so simple and doesn't require a whole lot of power. So it's not like the old days where you had to pack in as many batteries as you could to get as far of a signal as you could into the radios. Now 4 AA's, and you know, you're getting more than enough reception. Now the more you spend, the more features you get, which the more features you get can help prolong parts and not damage your car. So a cheap one, you may have a steering dual rate a lot of them are just going to have steering trim and throttle trim, and then you start getting into having some dual rate. But like the radios I have, so I just picked up the Spectrum DX6C, the new controller that they just came out with. It's DX5C. It's the exact same thing. They basically backlit the control, and it has another channel. I'm not saying Spectrum is great. Not at all. I'm just married to Spectrum because all of my cars have Spectrum receivers in there, because I bought one multi-channel car or multi-channel controller, and I kept buying more receivers and more receivers and more receivers, and then I filled that one up. So since I already had, 20 cars on Spectrum, I just kept buying another Spectrum radio and more receivers. So at this point, I have 120 some odd cars with Spectrum receivers in there and 4 controllers to control most of them. The only thing different is the ready to runs that I have. A lot of those are still on their factory controllers, which eventually they'll probably get changed over to, just because I get tired of trying to dig through and figure out which one goes to which and remembering to take the batteries out of them. Back to your question though, the 3 is good. I think the 5 is what most people buy, just because it's not much difference in price. You're still getting a good controller, a lot of features. I think the 5 is a little bit easier to program from what I've seen, and obviously you have 2 extra channels there for more lights or whatever else you may want to put on a vehicle and control from the radio. So maybe look at the 5. The 3 should be fine for just a standard car. You need 2 channels. Turn and go. But anything over top of that, extra lights, winches, stuff like that, you may want to have a multi-car controller with those extra channels eventually. So kind of weigh your options there. But I think you'll be fine with the GT5 or the GT3. And let's see, Voltage Vampire, what magnets are on your refrigerator? So I thought I'd just throw out a fun one for you. Have a great week. So hope you have a great week as well. And magnets on my refrigerators, mostly we have little magnetic picture frames that have, old pictures of family on it. We have chip clips. We got a lot of those. And a couple of the random little Christmas story magnets I picked up from the dollar store years ago. They're up year round. So Rick at Empty Pockets RC, how's the drone flight going? I know it's a little bit tough in this weather. I've taken it out a few times, and I actually have some snow footage, so I'll just put that up over here so it'll give you a break from staring at me. So I did take that out. I got some footage of it after it snowed and a little bit while it was snowing, but it was kind of a really pathetic snow, so there's not a lot on the trees. It's not super gorgeous. There's not a ton on the ground, but I have got it out. I do enjoy flying it. It's just right now with, I'm mostly interested in going up and taking pictures of stuff. I haven't gone anywhere with it. Mostly just because I'm not confident in flying it outside of line of sight. I'm getting there. The last flight up, I took it out of my line of sight because it's not hard to do. We're in the middle of the trees. But it did get out of earshot at one point, and, it took me a second to get reoriented to where I was and then fly back in my direction to, be able to at least hear it to tell, in relation to where I am, where it was. But I'm still enjoying it. It's not going to be something that I go full on and do all the time, but I do enjoy it, and I really appreciate Ryan sending it over to me. I never thought I would be flying anything for the terrible flight characteristics that I own. I crash a lot easier than I fly, but that thing pretty much flies itself, and it's been fun. So Arky RC asks, so you race, or have you ever raced RC cars? If so, what type of racing? I've never actually raced RC cars except for on my track with friends occasionally back in the day. I had a good friend who he got a Rustler just like me, and we would go out there and bash around and smash into each other on the track and laugh our heads off about it, but never anything serious. We tried to be serious, but generally it was one of the two of us running really hard into the other one of us, got us cracking up, and that just started a bash session, basically. I am a pretty terrible driver. If you guys have seen me run, I don't have a whole lot of control. Self-control is not my forte. And, I usually go in too hard into the corners, and I'm not very consistent. I go too hard in the corners because I love seeing the car slide into the corner and slide around the corner. So I'm more just running them to have fun and enjoy, and I always have, so it really shows in my track driving. I have a track just because I could make the track, and it gives me something to video on, but I'll never be a track driver per se. Anything I could do competitive, because I'm not competitive at all, but the only thing I probably would be able to do, like in a group environment, to be you know, racing anything, would maybe be a crawler course or something like that, where, you know, it's just me, the truck, and the course, and, you know, I'm not worried about breaking anybody else's car or screwing anybody else up while I'm out there. All right, what is this? Page 3 done. Don't worry, we've still got down to 4 pages to go. Buckle up, guys. So Rex RCs asked if you could upscale one of your RCs, and don't worry about legalities or anything serious, just to become a real vehicle that you could own and drive, which would it be? And hopefully this hasn't been asked yet. It hasn't, Rex, and it was a cool question. I couldn't really narrow it down. I got it down to 3. One would be the Mutts Cuts lunchbox that I made. That would just be hilarious to be able to bounce around and see the big ears flapping around. The other would be the M&M's monster truck that I built, because there is not a cool M&M's lunch truck, monster truck like that. And, you know, driving a monster truck would just be awesome. And then the Mustang, the GTR, the anniversary edition one that I have, you know, that would just be an awesome actual car to drive on the road. But yeah, those would probably be my top 3. You know, obviously, you know, Clodbuster, or, you know, if I wouldn't get hurt, the Pro Moto, but I'd probably hurt myself on it. All right, so Dave has asked me a couple times about a frog monster beetle mashup. What he wants to do is he wants to put monster beetle tires onto a frog. The rears will go on just fine. The fronts are an issue. So the only thing I've been able to come up with, and he suggested it, and I took a look at it, and you probably can make it work. You're going to have to do a couple things. So you need the Blitzer Beetle front spindles, and you're going to have to cut off the steering stop on it, because on the front side of the spindle, there's the little part that sticks out. You're gonna have to shave that completely off, and then there's a cap head screw on that holds the C-hub onto the upright of the frog. So you have this big cap head screw in there. You're gonna have to take that out, replace it with a regular 3mm, you know, button head screw of some sort to give you the clearance for that spindle to move back and forth inside the C-hub. It is very, very tight in there, but the Blitzer Beetle one will fit in there. You'll just have to do some modifications, and you're going to have to make your own custom links. That shouldn't be too hard. You just put some ball studs on the servo saver, get you some 3mm rod, and put you some ball cups on there, and, you know, make your own rod ends. But you're going to have to get rod ends, you're going to make your rods, you're going to get the ball studs, the Blitzer Beetle front spindles, and then some sort of little smaller profile cap head screw to make sure that when that spindle is turning in there inside of that C-hub, that it's not going to be knocking against that big button head screw. I had pictures up here while I was rambling, so hopefully that makes sense. So I have not done it, but I did confirm that it will go on there. It fits inside the C-hub, and the wheel will go on it. It should be all fine. You're going to have to probably take the bumper off, because when you turn it, the tires are going to want to hit into the bumper, so you're going to trim it off, or, you know, get one of the little aluminum bumpers or something off of eBay. But you should be able to make it work with the Blitzer Beetle axles. RRHO5EK. Not even going to try to say that one. Why doesn't Tamiya change their plastic formula so that when you put in self-tapping screws, it doesn't crack apart? As much as I love the wild designs of Tamiya, they're always a risk. I have many modern cars, and I know how good and strong the plastic can be when it's right. Could it be tradition, cost? This being said, I still love those ancient, hard, spiky tires. I wish I could answer why they don't make more modern plastics in their re-releases, other than they're trying to be true to the originals and only, you know, update the parts that are required to be updated. The other thing is it could be very hard on the tooling and the molds that they currently use. I don't know much about injection molding, but I do know a lot of the tougher plastics do have more of an abrasive properties, so it may come down to cost of running through molds, or some of their dated machinery may not be able to, you know, do what it needs to do with those newer, tougher plastics. I'm not sure. Tamiya is a great unknown to all of us. Even the guys that have been in it for, you know, hardcore into it for decades, still don't know why Tamiya does what Tamiya does. They have always done things the way they want to do them. So Matt asks, I've got an interesting question. What car did you always want, but you know you'll never get? probably the Blazing Blazer. As much as I hope and hope and hope that they come out with the Blazing Blazer on one of the big anniversaries, I don't see it ever happening. It's just a big, heavy kit. I don't know. I would love to see them do it, but I have great reservations in my head that they probably will never do it. So I doubt if I ever get one. And you know, I could probably get one if I wanted to, but the parts for them are next to impossible to find. You know, finding one in great condition, you know, I'm not spending that much money on an RC car. You know, I can get dozens of RCs for the cost of one good Blazing Blazer. So more than likely that's going to be the unobtainable one. I'm not too upset about it, but I would love to have one. All right, change of scenery. Took a break. The camera decided it got too hot and it wanted to take a break. So we're coming back to you with Al from Spare Time RC. So hey Adam, on a day when you want to go out and have fun and run your RC in wet conditions, you know, grass, mud, dirt, etc., what do you use to clean your RCs? I used to buy like, you know, spray on RC cleaners, and they worked, but they were just awful expensive and, you know, didn't seem to do much different than, you know, Windex. So spray away glass cleaner. I get this stuff at my local BJ's wholesale club in a 4-pack. Super cheap. I think it's like 12 bucks for 4 cans. But actually, I think it's like 10, 12 bucks for 4 cans. It smells great. It foams. So you can spray it onto dirty suspension parts and kind of let it ooze off and get away a lot of the crud and dirt. And then, you know, it smells great, and it is alcohol based, so you do have to be careful on painted stuff. So especially like your driver's figures with the acrylic paint, this stuff will soften up the acrylic paint. You know, normal, you know, a quick wipe down of a body, you're completely fine. But any acrylic paints I would try to avoid with this. But, you know, car parts and stuff, no big deal. Now, like I said, it does have alcohol in it, so I wouldn't leave parts sitting in it. So I wouldn't use it as like a, you know, let parts sit and degrease, but you really don't have to. The Kyosho that I just rebuilt, I used all of that to clean up all the grease, all the crud, all the gross off of it that had been on there for God knows how long. And, you know, it is super quick. Spray a bunch of parts with it, take toothbrush and scrub it, works great. Microfiber towels, also great. You can pick these up on Amazon, like a 50-pack for, you know, 10, 12 bucks. And, you know, they work great. And when they're done, you just toss them in a big pile and then rinse them all off. I collect a whole ton of them at one time, and I'll go out in a 5-gallon bucket, get as much crap off of them as I can, and then just throw them in a washing machine, and they're ready to go again. Oh, and I found Spray Away off of Vice Grip Garage. He was using it to clean damn near everything on a car, and I was like, huh, I gotta try that. And this stuff works, and it smells great. So page 4 is done. So Gil Channel 815 asks, so if you have 2 or 3 RC cars and you only have one controller, can you run them and the electrics in the car are all the same? Yes, you know, I already know. Yes, you know, I already don't know much, but I am trying. So thanks, you're the best. So don't worry about it. Anybody can ask questions. You know, everybody started from somewhere. Everybody's been a beginner at some point. So don't ever feel scared or timid to ask questions. There's always going to be somebody that knows the answer, and if you don't get an answer right away, you know, try again on another video. If I can't answer it, I'll usually bring it up in another video of, you know, if I don't know the answer to it, I'll usually ask you guys to chime in. So yes and no, you can run multiple cars on one radio. Now there's caveats to that. So if you have a single car radio and you have all the same receivers in the other cars, you can, you know, run one, and then you'll have to bind another car to it. You'll probably have to tweak all your settings and then run that one. And then you can bind, you know, car number 3 to it and then run car number 3. Now, the way to get around that is to buy a multi-channel computer radio that can hold multiple models in memory. So like all 3 of these cars have the same type of receiver in it, and they're all bound to one controller. So all I have to do is turn on the controller, scroll through to find, you know, the Blitzer Beetle, and get that, and it's already linked to it. It has all my settings saved for the Blitzer Beetle, so the steering trim may be a little bit different than, say, the Neo Scorcher over here. So when I go to the Neo Scorcher, it knows all the settings for the Neo Scorcher, to where if you're just jumping one radio from car to car to car by having to rebind it, you're going to lose all those settings. So if this one naturally wants to steer to the left and this one naturally wants to steer to the right, well, when you go from the settings to this one, it's going to really be steering to the right, and you're going to change all those settings. So a multi-controller radio, or a multi-vehicle radio, is a great thing to have, especially when you start getting lots and lots of cars. And like the Fly Skies are, the GT3, the GT5, all those are multi-model memory. Spectrum, the ones that I have are multi-model. There's a ton of them out there, and you can get really expensive radios. The Noble is a great one, but that thing has more functionality than I'll ever be able to use. But in general, once you get it, once you set one up, it's the same setup on the rest of them. You bind it, you change the steering rates, you change this and that, get it all set, and it's saved forever. You don't have to mess with it. So he did have a second question, and it's a really, really hard one to answer. So basically his question was, if you're not able to get a ton of cars like me, what would be the cars you would suggest to get, like buggies and stuff, to get kind of as an investment, to be able to pass on to your children, to, hopefully they would either be able to enjoy them or make money off of them. That one's a really, really hard one. Unfortunately, the expensive one now are the rare ones that are just going to be a big investment, and I don't know what the future investment may hold on that. You may spend $500 to get a new in-box kit of a unreleased or a previously unre-released car, and 6 months from now, they may re-release that car, and now you've got $500 into a car kit that you can go buy brand new for $189.99. So, I don't buy for an investment value. I've bought all these to fulfill kind of the childhood checklist of staring at catalogs and magazines day in and day out and just wanting, ooh, I want that, ooh, I want that, I want that, I want that. And, there's still some big kid wish list items going on. But I enjoy building them. I enjoy having them. I enjoy running them. I don't run them all the time, but I do. They've all been run at least once in general. There are a few shelf queens, but it's hard to recommend anything for investments. I would say if you're looking to invest in ones that have a more promise of return on investment, would be limited edition kits, the anniversary kits, stuff like that. The problem is now everybody's trying to, hold on to these things and invest into them and hold on to them. It's become a thing over the last 5 years or so, to where, there's been so much of a resurgence of older cars and, fixing up older cars and collecting them and stuff, that, man, it's so expensive to do that now. What that return investment is, it's hard to say. And you have all that competition for limited edition kits. Like, when the last Tamiya limited edition Porsche came out, people were like almost coming to blows over that thing, trying to get one. And I'm like, it's a Porsche, I can get a TT02 with that same Porsche body on it pretty much. So, investing in RC is a tricky thing. I think you're never going to get out what you pay into it financially. Your kids may, if they hold on to it for, another 20, 30 years, but who knows what the world's going to be in another 20, 30 years. So that one's a really hard one to answer. So Trey at All RC Fun, what's the craziest thing you've ever done? Start a YouTube channel. Seriously though, I never thought I would be in a public speaking manner at all. I'm a very, introverted type person. I don't, do a lot outside of home. I've always I've been an only child my whole life, so it's always been me and, what I'm doing. So doing this channel and putting myself out in front of millions of people and, facing the dreaded ridicule of not doing stuff right was very, very, very intimidating. Other than that, I am not... Sorry, this is bothering me. I got a piece of fuzz on there. I am not an adventurous guy. I don't go out of my way. I've beaten myself up too many times doing, regular stuff that I don't really put myself in harm's way. He said he's done skydiving, scuba diving, cave scuba diving, roller skating from the top of a mountain or a super high bridge, blah, blah, blah. And no, I don't do that stuff. I have done a lot of stupid stuff as a teenager. Nothing I'm going to divulge here for fear of repercussions, but I've done some dumb stuff, never adventurous stuff. Trey also asked, what are some work-related knowledge that's been helpful for you in the hobby? I would say mostly it's the creativity and the problem solving that I developed when I worked in the cabinet shops for years. Taking an architect's drawing and turning those into reality sometimes led to a lot of creative bubblegum duct tape engineering. So there was a lot of elaborate stuff drawn out with pencil strings, cardboard, the original CAD design, cardboard aided design. I learned a lot through that, and just growing up being perpetually curious on how things work, I have torn apart a lot of things. Not much of it went back together well as a kid, but not being afraid to tear into something and figure out why it broke. If your vacuum cleaner breaks, everybody else in the world is just going to go carry it to the dump and throw it away. I've got to tear it apart first to figure out why it stopped working. And once I figure out why it stopped working, can I fix it? Probably not. Then it goes to the dump. Most of the time I'm tearing screws off of it and electric cords and stuff like that, but that's just me. I'm a hoarder. What's your favorite thing about the RC hobby? I think it's a mixture of, it is very personal and just me, and it is very, very community and everybody. You can be at either end or like me and jump between them. When I'm down here at the bench and I am building and I've got, some classic rock on or 80s hair metal or something, and I'm down here building or fixing or whatever, I'm having the time of my life. 6 hours down here at the bench, wrenching away, building something, fixing something, doing whatever, goes by like that. And, 6 hours at work feels like a week sometimes. But, I get on here and I talk to so many people. I've got friends now from all over the world. I never thought I would have friends in Australia and friends in the UK. And, it blows me away that, this thing is like this multinational little community that we have. And I don't know, it tickles me to no end to know that, you guys are watching from across the globe of me goofing around in my basement. It's really cool. He also said he really appreciated the fine detail paintbrush tip, and to not ever let your paint mask or masking tape touch the bench or anything else. So if you guys don't know about that, when you're working with painting and stuff, you don't ever lay your masking tape straight down on the table. Put it back into the little tub or put it down on something is clean. That way you're not picking up dirt and dust and dog hair and cat hair and whatever else may be on your bench at the time, and then trying to use that to paint a line, because any of that little tiny stuff that gets in there is going to be a paint bleed. So that's what he's talking about there. So Craig at the OAG RC asked, if you could be an RC car, what would you be? He said, me, I'd probably be a lunchbox with a crawler motor, big, slow, and steady, but crazy as hell. So my immediate reaction was also the lunchbox. And I'm probably going to stick with it, lunchbox or the Midnight Pumpkin, pumpkin. Bulky, awkward, but always makes you smile and is always fun. I try to, I'm always been the class clown, goofball, so, in a community of get together or whatever, when there's a bunch of people, I'm usually the one cracking the jokes and being a smart ass. And I'm not the smallest thing. And I'm not fast. I'm not agile. So probably have to go with that. I really couldn't think of another one better. So you can be the lunchbox. I'll be the Midnight Pumpkin. Shen RC, if you could only have one type of RCs, what type would you choose? Buggies, monster trucks, rally cars, on-road cars, whatever. I would say probably buggies for a couple different reasons. One, there's tons of selections of buggies. It's kind of like a classic staple of the hobby. There's always been buggies. There always will be buggies. There's lots of styles, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. There's even 3D printed front-wheel drive ones now. They're great fun to build. They're great fun to drive. You can enjoy a 2-wheel drive buggy by sliding around the corner and, slinging dirt all around, or, just that hunker down and haul butt of a 4-wheel drive buggy. So I would have to say buggies would be my go-to. Second would be monster trucks. So Mark Bryan RC asked a very philosophical question. So this is a bit off the wall, but when you're sat at your desk there making this video, are you stationary or are you actually moving? Well, technically, I'm still in my own reality. I am still within my own reality. So, you know, in this setting, I'm still. But nothing is ever truly still. So everything is moving at some point. So not to get too deep into it, but you know, you could have a giant rusty chain from a boat anchor just sitting there. Can't be picked up by anybody. It is always moving. That stuff is always oxidating. There's always little tiny flakes of rust falling off of it. It is always in some sort of motion. Every time rust moves, you know, a chain slips, slides, moves, it's always going to be moving in some degree. Plastics, you know, the top of it's going to be oxidizing, you know, things are going to shrink, move, heat, blah, blah, blah. Nothing is ever still. There's energy in everything. And no, I'm not a crystal-loving energy freak, but that's just a fact. All right, page 5 on the floor. Still 2 more to go and a couple. So Franco Tarantino. I built 4 full-size cars, 3 cars and 1 truck. Have you ever built any cars? Well, I've never really truly built a full-size car. I did a lot of work and did a lot of modifications on a couple of different Mustangs I used to have. I had a 79, an 85, and a 91. Well, actually, no, I had a 2012 as well. That one I didn't really do any work on. That was just all maintenance. But I have rebuilt my own C4 transmission, and I've rebuilt a 302 motor, and I've done a bunch of different motor swaps and stuff over the years. So never built one, you know, not a ground up type thing, restoration or anything, but I've done a lot of work on cars. I don't like working on cars anymore. I'm too old, fat, and stiff to be working on them now. He also asks, you know, kids say, I want to be a fireman, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. When you were little, what did you want to be? I really don't remember if I ever wanted to be anything specific. More than likely, if I did, it was probably something like a veterinarian. I loved animals growing up. It was a love-hate relationship because I'm allergic to every animal on the face of the earth. But probably a veterinarian. But honestly, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So again, I'm just winging it and going with the flow. He also, third question is, what does your beard look like in the morning when you wake up? Not much different. Sometimes there's like the odd tuft going somewhere, but you know, I've had this beard for 13 years, 12, 13 years now. I don't know. It's been a long time. We're in double digits for having this long beard. So, you know, there's ways to, you know, you tuck it underneath the blanket and you get it to where you don't wake up with a big face afro. Thad over at Iowa Budget RC Bashers. Why are you so awesome? If I am, it was 100% accidental. I'm just a dude hanging out in his basement, being goofy, enjoying you guys in the comments and recording, you know, my poor purchasing control with you guys. Kanan stuff. How long have you been to RC, and do you just do electric, or do you have or like nitro and gas cars? In total, RC for about 40 years. Hobby grade for 35 of that. You know, I remember stumbling around after a little red fire truck that had a wired remote to it, and my mom hated it because it had lights and sounds. One of my aunts or uncles got it for me for Christmas or birthday, I think, and I know she hated it because the batteries always seemed dead in it for some reason. And we never had replacements often. So like I said earlier, first kind of real RC was the Tyco heads-up turbo hopper, and then the first real hobby grade RC was the Super Blackfoot. As far as electric and nitro, I did have some nitro cars. I have one left. I have the Offna Ravager 8-scale buggy. I had a Thunder Tiger 8-scale buggy. I sent that over to Brent at Adventure Time RC. And I had a Traxxas T-Max, the 3.3 nitro. And I sent that down to Island RC Duke. And, you know, I'm glad they have it. They can have fun with it. I know. I think the nitro buggy was the first for Brent, so I think he had some fun with it. I'm sure it's sitting out in his garage. You know, they are kind of a pain in the butt. I know Duke he's fixed his up. He had some issues with the transmission I didn't even know had, but he got all that fixed up. He's running it. Nitro is fun, and you know there is a sense of enjoyment out of, you know, hearing it rip around, and the smoke and the sound and the heat and the smells, and how fast and powerful they are, it's just a pain in the ass. I don't like cleaning. So that castor oil and all that crap on them, attracts all the dirt and dust, and you got this crap all over it. And electric is just so much simpler, so much easier. I basically got one type of NIM pack, and I've got 2 or 3 different types of LiPo packs, and I can power all the cars that I have. I don't have to worry about this fuel versus that fuel, or that motor versus that motor, and tuning them. I just stick the batteries in there and run. So over time, it has turned into 100% electric. I haven't got rid of the OFNA yet, just because it's just got some sentimental value to it. It was the first the gas kit that I ever had, so I'm probably going to keep that one just for the fun of it. Emmanuel asked, hey, which one would you like Tamiya to re-release? Personally, mine is the Falcon. I'm a new subscriber from France, so thank you. And again, worldwide, it's amazing to me. So obviously Blazing Blazer, I mentioned it earlier, would be kind of my top tier. I would love to see him release the Astute, an actual Astute, not something renamed as an Astute, but the actual Astute. And probably the King Cab would be the ones that I would really want to see. I have a King Cab, but I would really love them to do another one. There's so many out there that I would love to see them do another one of, and there's a lot of Kyoshos I would like to see them do other ones of, but Blazing Blazer would be at the top of that list. Jeremy over at Hey Dad RC, his is fairly similar, a little bit different, but fairly similar. He said, while I can understand why they haven't seen some of the Tamiya re-releases like the Falcon due to inherent chassis weak points, but in your opinion, why haven't we seen many of the others? So some of them I think we haven't seen. They're probably holding out for those to be like landmark anniversary ones, or to celebrate an anniversary year. They may do, God, I hope they don't do another stupid Porsche. And I don't have anything against Porsches, but I don't have anything for Porsches. And another anniversary Porsche to me is just, beating a dead horse. But people buy them like crazy. So, but, I think maybe, for the big anniversary, because I think 50's coming up in another year or two, we may see some of the really, really, really sought after ones. But like you said, the Falcon does have some inherent issues with it that they would have to actually fix the chassis. And honestly, I think if they didn't even fix the chassis, they would probably still sell like hotcakes, but I don't think that they would re-release them with the issues that they have. He also goes on to say, the Fast Attack vehicle is probably one of the tops on his list. That is a great one. I wouldn't mind having one of those myself, especially the little shark mouth one. I like that one. And, there's a bunch of people in our age demographic that are just desperately trying to get, the ones that we had when we first started, or one that we always wanted and could never afford, but now we can. But, like I said earlier, to me, is this great mystery. Nobody knows what the hell goes on in that building and why they make the decisions they do and what, they do and don't do. It's baffling to me on why they haven't come out with some of this stuff, but they've always marched to the beat of their own drum. They have their own tune, they have their own drum, they march the way they want to march, and they're just going to keep doing it because I don't see them changing ever. Joe from Joe vs. RC sent out a funny one. Why is the number 42 so special? Well, I'm assuming you mean that it's the meaning of life. But I think for most of us, it was probably the last age we were at where we went to bed and weren't worried about sleeping on something wrong. I think around 40 to 42, you kind of hit that tipping point to where every night you're like, God, I hope I don't wake up my neck stiff again, or I hope I don't wake up my shoulder so sore again. I think it's about that time in life where, you just wake up and there's another mystery pain for no reason. Another one on the floor. So Mark from RCU in the Shed. Hey mate, I've got 2 questions. First is, which of the football teams do you follow? And when I was asking about the bug and caterpillar activity and predicted an extra wet winter, how's that prediction going? You mentioned a lot of rain in this winter in your vids. Hope all well. Have a great weekend. You too, Mark. Ravens, like I said, they're the football team I follow. Don't follow them that close. I do watch some of the games. My neighbor, she's a huge Ravens fan, so we'll go over there and hang out and watch a game every now and then. Used to be the Redskins when I was growing up, but they have sucked eternally for the last 30 years, so I've given up on them. And as far as the wet winter, it has been very wet here, except for the last 2 or 3 weeks. It has finally taken a break, and things have dried out, and I've actually been able to get out and run a few cars, but they're calling for rain Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, so there goes that. But overall, yes, it's been a wet winter. So, RELDWOB22, Reldwob, interesting name. Which RC kit has been your most enjoyable build, and which has been your favorite to run? Grand Hauler was the favorite to build by far. Just seeing that big, semi-truck come to life, all those bits and pieces, all that metal, leaf springs, all that stuff. It was just so enjoyable and rewarding to see that start to finish. It's kind of weird to say my favorite one to run. Well, two on the favorite one to run. Favorite one to just go out and have a great time with and put a smile on my face, hands down, the lunchbox. That is a bad day solver in itself. Put a battery in it, go out there, run it around, bobble it, bash it, roll it, flip it, just have a great time with it. Enjoy watching it do wheelies. It'll put a smile on your face, and it's always a great one to run. As far as a great running car, I would have to say, and I hate to say it because I've only ran it one time, but the RC10, the runner that I have up there, the orange body one, I was just floored on how well that went around the track, how great it performed. It just went around, it just did everything perfectly. I didn't have any, other than the diff issues, I didn't have any issues out of it. It didn't spin out, it didn't tumble, didn't bumble. It just ran and ran well. And it's 0.6 seconds off the top of the leaderboard. My fastest time is a 10:04, and it's sitting in third place with a 10:10. So, for performance-wise, the RC10 is just... It blew me away, but for fun having, just taking it out and ripping it is the lunchbox every day, all day. So Supplebun asks, why is the sky blue? Well, that's because the grass is green. Duh. I don't know. There's science behind it, but that's my answer. Alright, so Dan Jazz 2000. Forgive me for such a long-winded question. I brought a few cars, a Losi XXX, a BK2, a Losi 20T. Old Losi fan, couldn't afford the JR Pro or the LXT. I put a Ghoul brushless combo 4300 in there. Pulled back the punch and adjusted the slippers to have hopefully saved the gearbox. Apart from one ESC failure, it's fast, maybe too fast for the car's age. As I have to buy another ESC, would you put it back to brushed, say a 1060 with a RZ Tamiya motor? I also purchased a World's Optimum Mid and have no idea what combo to run. I'm not a racer or a punisher of RC cars. Being a mechanic, perhaps I have too much mechanical sympathy. I don't want to push these old girls too far past, but I do like the power. Thanks for taking some time to consider my question. So first off, cheap ESCs. I bought a couple of them. I bought a brush Ghoul that went up in, it was like a Ghoul 1060 years ago. That went up in smoke in like 30 seconds. I recently bought the little cheap brushless system. That ESC was a turd and a half. The motor was fine. The ESC was terrible. So avoid budget, off-brand, crazy ESCs. Stick with something like Hobby Wing or something name brand like that. They generally do them right. As far as going back to brushed, you can go with a 1060, that's fine. If you want to have some performance tuning to it, I would say go with the 1080. There's much more performance tuning in a 1080, plus you're going to get a little bit better heat dissipation from it. It's not much of a bigger footprint, but it is kind of has that full aluminum head on it. And, you can program it to punch and everything. It's a whole lot more programmable than the 1060. Now, as far as the motors... I get 17 and 19 is about the fastest I run. I do have a 15 in this. But generally I don't run super fast motors, especially off-road. I would say 17 and 19 is a perfect one for four-wheel drive. 19 is a little bit better for two-wheel drive. You start getting down too low and you're just excessive speed and excessive wheel speed, you're just going to do loops, you're just going to spin out, you're just going to put too much wheel speed through a jump, land, tear something up. So I would say for the older ones, tend to be a little bit more restrictive, stick to that 17, 19 turn. The Optima, the Turbo Optima in here, this one I have a 19-turn Orion Element motor in here, and that thing kicks butt. You can still find them on eBay. I think it's a seller in Germany, still has a few of them. It's not terribly expensive. I think with shipping it was like $30, $40 range, so it wasn't terribly expensive. and is a great motor. It has a great amount of punch, but not too much speed to where you're going to end up smashing into things and breaking things or stressing too many parts out. For regular builds, you know, if you don't want a retro motor in there, or you don't want a original motor, the Holmes Hobby retro sport motors are great. Something like that, put a 17 turn in there, you'll have a great time with it. They're not quite as powerful and punchy as some of the rebuildable motors, but they're 0 degree timing, so you don't have to worry about, you know, getting specific rotations or anything. They're cheap. They're fixed in bells, but they have fans in them, so they do cool themselves off a little bit. And they come in cool, like neon sticker colors and stuff that kind of fits with the older builds. So that's something as well. I think they're like $20, $25, something like that. So they're really inexpensive and, you know, are great for just, you know, running around having fun bashers. But I understand if you're trying to do, you know, restorations and old buggies, you probably want older motors, but I would stick to somewhere probably around that, like I said, 17, 19 turn. That's what I would run. All right, so Brad Kalman, unfortunately, my last video kind of answered this one. So what's your next on-road car, even though I know you don't have many places to run them, but you do occasionally. So obviously, hopefully most people saw the birthday haul, but I got an MB-01 with the Alfa Romeo body, and I got a TC-01 with the CLK GTR Mercedes body on it. So of those two, right now, it looks like the TC-01 is kind of the crowd favorite. So that may be the first one of those built, but it's going to be one of those two. It's about the only two, I think it's the only two on-road cars that I have at the moment. So one of those two, Brad. No Music RC. What's the final digit of pi? Well, first, I hate math, so I have no idea. And the only pie that I've ever actually gotten to the into is cherry, apple, pecan, pumpkin, key lime, those type of things. And, you know, that just, there's no number left. It's 0. You also asked, what's your most expensive RC and your cheapest RC? So the Grand Hauler is going to be the most expensive one, but I didn't actually have to buy that. The RCL sent all that to me. He sent me the truck, he sent me the trailer, he sent me the MFC. So technically, both the cheapest and the most expensive at the same time. As far as regular other RCs, I would probably say the Promoto is probably one of the most expensive purchases. And then after that, it was probably the Axial Early Bronco, are probably some of the more expensive ones that I've actually bought. Cheapest one, but this is actually the cheapest one I bought. It's the Tricycle Spray Function RTR. I don't know. It's the Dodo something. I don't know. It's a trike. Jeremy from Hey Dad RC got one, and I just 15, 18 bucks, something like that. I couldn't argue with it. So I got it. It's been pulled apart. I've got it in a tub over there to get the decal stripped off of it. And I'm going to get it repainted and put back together just, you know, to have fun with it. But that's probably the cheapest. I think it was like 15 bucks. Yeah, I can't think of anything that I bought that was any cheaper than that. Cash Murray, what got you into RC? I know you've answered this before, but sorry, I don't remember. And thanks again. So like I said earlier, I've always been fascinated by anything remote controlled, and, you know, whether it was with a cord or, you know, cordless, whatever. I've always loved to tinker and run things and, you know, build things. So I would say, you know, 40 years now I've been, you know, tinkering and playing with them. So VS, we're down to the last two guys, so we're wrapping up, which is good because I can barely talk now. VSCI79 asks, what are a couple things that makes RC timeless? There are a couple good ideas I have on this. One is it is constantly improving. We started from, you know, companies like Tamiya that took a plastic model and made it move, and it's evolved from there to where you think somebody has probably made it or is in the process of making it. Jet boats, jet planes, you know, the Promoto is a great example. You know, that is a bike with this crazy 6-way gyro and, you know, super efficient flywheel system that basically you can just drive it along at a walking space, and the thing just stays up and drives. It will ride a wheelie by itself. You know, you just give it gas and it'll ride a wheelie. The technology we have now is amazing, and it just keeps getting better. That said, it's not really any more expensive now than it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It's always been an expensive hobby, and it's always going to be an expensive hobby, but what we have now versus what we had back then, so vastly different. I mean, you had this buggy when it first came out. You'd put a nickel cadmium pack in here and with a mechanical speed controller and an AM radio that you may get 150 feet away from you before things start glitching, and you would get 5-7 minutes of runtime out of it, depending on what motor you had in there and how fast and how hard you were running it. 10 minutes usually. I can put a nickel metal hydride pack in this thing with a $30 2.4 gigahertz radio system, drive it to where I can barely see what it's doing, and drive it for 20-25 minutes now on a nickel metal hydride pack. I can put a LiPo in there and drive for a half hour on a moderate motor. So it's just amazing what we can do versus what we could do. And a battery now, a LiPo battery now, costs no more than a nickel metal hydride pack when they came out, or a NiCad pack back in the day. A NiCad pack back in the day was $25-$30 for a decent battery, and now you can go to Amazon and get a good LiPo for $20-$30. And there's so much has stayed the same, so much has changed, and it's that constant evolution and everything that just makes it so cool. And the other thing is, it has always been a great community. There has always been, from day one to current, there's always been a healthy RC community. The guys and girls and stuff that make up RC, they're so helpful. You will run across a jerk occasionally, or some ding-dong that thinks he knows everything about everything and wants to argue about everything. You're going to run into that regardless, but there are far, far fewer unhelpful, jerkish people in this hobby than in any other hobby I've ever worked for or worked with. Woodworking is a very communal thing, but there's still people that have I've got these trade secrets and I'm never telling anybody about the way I do my thing. And that's not... Hey dude, how are you so much faster on me on the track? Oh, well, see, you got your tires, pointing in like this. You need to have them a little bit more like that, and then kick the camber back, kick the caster back a little bit, and it'll track nice and straight down the straights. And I see you're kind of drifting all over the place. That type of stuff doesn't happen in other, well, it does, but it's not as common outside of the RC hobby that I've seen. Everybody's very helpful. Your car broke, here, dude, I got a shock, put this shock on there. It may not work great, but it'll keep you going for the rest of the afternoon. Hey, I broke a tie rod. Oh, here, I got something here. Let's make a link real quick. It's that type of stuff that just, I love this hobby. So we're going to end this one off on a very odd one, and why not? So Dabber 422, do you believe in UFOs/paranormal? Well, yes, no. So I think it's silly to think that we're all alone in this universe. But I also think it's silly that if anybody else in this universe has mastered the ability to do interstellar travel, I don't think they're going to come here and be found by us. They're not going to go, oops, we forgot to turn the masking thing on and the little skin puppets can see us. That's not going to happen. If there are things out there outside of our little marble that we're floating around on, sure, there probably is. If they can get there from here, they're either going to land here and take us over and, eat us all for dinner or harvest us for the carbon or whatever it is that may happen. Or, my general thought is if they're able to do interstellar travel, they're going to go, lock the windows, kids, as they fly by us. Ghosts, not really, but, there's always a glitch in everything, so possibly. Till I see one, I'm not going to believe it. And same thing with aliens. Till I see one, I'm not going to believe it, but I'm pretty sure that they're out there. All right, guys. Well, my floor is covered in tons and tons of questions. I've had to restart my camera 3 times now because it keeps wanting to overheat. And so if you guys are looking for a long camera that's going to have a long record time, the Sony ZV-1s are not it. You get about 30-40 minutes out of it, it's going to overheat unless you change the batteries every 10 minutes. Anyway, guys, I hope everybody enjoyed the video. I know these are long ones, and everybody that made it to the end, congratulations to you guys. You're champs. I hope you enjoyed all the answers to the questions. We'll do another one of these in a month or two. I always enjoy it. I need to do more speaking during the day so my voice doesn't end up being so raspy and tired at the end, but I think about 2 hours of recording, and we've got it all knocked out. So time for me to go upstairs, start editing this, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and everybody out there, as always, be happy, be healthy, be safe. See you. To become a real RC car, or a real vehicle, God bless. This is why it takes me so long to edit. You're gonna mess me up.
Hey, Hobby.
What do you want?
Say goodbye. I'm out of here, bitches.